I didn't know you were going to take such a long time.
Brilliant. Did you just accept the recording? Okay, thanks. So here we go. So thank you very much for agreeing to participate in this interview for my MD, which is titled, How Does the Interplay Between Social and Mainstream Media Impact Upon Global Public Health Communication During a Pandemic? So it'll be topical if nothing else. And this is an MD that has been started during the first UK lockdown of March 2020 and continued contemporaneously. So 2020 has been a year like no other, and the purpose of this semi-structured interview is to explore your views on the role various forms of media has had on how you personally have processed and reacted to evolving news of the pandemic. Does that sound fair enough?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So what were your recollections of when you first heard about COVID-19?
Initially, when I heard about it, it didn't dawn on me that it would have this much of an impact on people's lives and how things would just completely turn upside down. And gradually, bit by bit, more and more information came. So yeah, it was a shock.
Okay. And when you say turn lives upside down, how do you mean?
In terms of, it's affected lots of people in many ways. And, you know, a lot of people are now reflecting and thinking that those that have managed to keep healthy and not got COVID and what have you feel, or to me, it sounds like they're immensely grateful because they're thinking, you know, in my life, I've always been someone who appreciates the little things in life. And so every, you know, just a flower in the garden and I get excited. But some people have very high expectations out of life. So suddenly, because this year has been tough on those people, now they're coming to my way of thinking in terms of, oh, actually, there are far more valuable, other important things that actually matter. So people have started thinking that way, I think.
Okay, and you said as you heard more about it, as the news kind of came through, what source of media do you use to get your news?
I sort of try to balance it in the sense that you do hear some rubbish on social media, and then you've got to gather your information from reliable sources and then balance it a little bit rather than just get carried away with one thing and believe that as true.
When you say balance it and reliable sources, how do you mean?
Well, am I allowed to mention names?
Yeah, obviously.
So I've, you know, yes, I've looked at social media. Yes, I've looked at government websites. But then if I want reliable information, I either talk to Kishan, who has more inside knowledge. So I don't expect him to divulge everything. But when I ask for advice, I feel grateful.
To be honest, I don't even have inside knowledge. I just have an understanding and an awareness because I've been reading about it for a long time. But so forget about me so much, but other people, the other sources that we've got a question coming onto this where maybe we'll wait. We'll do that in a sec. So hold on. So, okay. So what, we've talked about that one. What was the first country you heard was affected by COVID-19?
Wow, that's really interesting now. Wuhan, that it was just constant talk about Wuhan and how it had started there. And, you know, that disparity in what people knew at that time is quite striking now when I think back, because whereas my work was trying to keep it all normalized and thinking, no, it's not affecting us, and no, the government hasn't said anything, we're fine, we're following government guidance. And yet you were telling me something because you were ahead of that time and you knew what was going on. So balancing that was quite tricky at that time. And then within a week or so, or 2 weeks maybe, they came to your way of thinking, and then they literally, I couldn't go back into the office. Overnight it all just changed.
Okay, that's interesting. So how did the news make you feel about when you heard about Wuhan?
Yes.
So forget about me telling you stuff and me kind of doing stuff, because that's a bit of a biased influencer. So ignore everything I was saying. But what when you were looking at it on the news, or when you heard about it, what did you think?
At the time, I didn't think it was going to be as serious a situation in a pandemic as it has turned out to be. I was just literally thinking, yeah, it's happening. But I didn't know how widely this was going to spread and how many people were going to be affected.
Okay. Did you change your behaviours on hearing the news? And if so, what? So in that couple of weeks, as it was breaking kind of early to mid-March, in the run-up to the 23rd of March,
yes.
Did you change anything in any way?
I like to think that, I'm quite, hygiene is quite important on my, in my life anyway. But because I work in social care, there was more of an impact on that, saying, just educating people, you must do this, you must wash your hands, you must start keeping your, social distancing and all that. So yeah, again, I picked that up really quickly, and my job then became informing and, educating other people.
Okay. How do your views vary with regard to COVID-19 as compared with your friends and family?
So it's interesting you asked me that, because I have been watching a couple of webinars recently, and since, particularly since the vaccines have come out, and again, they're sort of one-sided in a sense, because they're all Indian communities where various medical professionals are holding webinars, and they're doing a little bit of a spiel about COVID, about vaccinations, about how safe it is, blah, blah, blah. And then what they're doing is they're asking questions, and they're open to Q&As. But some of it I find quite basic, and I'm thinking, it's been going for best part of a year. Have these people not cottoned on yet? Why are they asking this now? And also, I'm thinking, look around you. There are still people thinking that this is just something, not conspiracy theory as such, but thinking that it's blown out of all proportion. And, one thing I find really, really hilarious in some of the circles that I not necessarily mix in, but I'm acquainted to, they pose to take a photograph. They've got masks on, and then they take their masks off for the photograph. And I'm thinking, you've not got this at all. You're not really prioritizing what's right here.
Yeah. Okay. I've forgotten what I was going to say. It was something about why do you think... Oh, yeah. Why do you think... you mentioned conspiracy theory, but what factors at play do you think there are in terms of... I think it's fair to say that people are quite divided. Some people are very, very... not paranoid, but on top of it and diligent and looking at it, where there's other people are looking at it in terms of they're saying that, well, why do you lock down a country for something that's got a 99.7% survival rate and has killed less than 400 people under 60 with no health conditions? So what do you think the forces are that are driving people and polarizing people towards those camps?
Yeah, I think 2 or 3 different things are at play here. some people have that negative attitude about things, in terms of, once they've seen it on social media about one person saying, oh, this is all because they want to control us and all that, and then they go just take that on board and run with that theory, and they don't balance it by thinking, all these people that we see who are losing their lives, and it's an awful, awful way to go. If those people on ventilators, those people who are in ITU for months on end, those healthcare workers who are on their knees trying to support people. Of course it's true, because there were people asking questions at this webinar saying, oh, do you think that there's any scientific proof that this is happening? And the urologist who was on there, who works in a London hospital, she was hilarious. She turned around and she said, look, I lost a friend and a colleague who was 55 in the very early days. And she showed a picture of her with all the marks that she got on herself when she spends hours on the ward in PPE. And she turned around and she said, this many people have died, and I've watched them die. How much more proof do you want, So that's, I think, if people aren't going to take notice of that and still spout out rubbish on social media, you're never going to persuade them. They're just going to stay that way and bury their head in the sand. They'll be, ignorance is bliss type of situation.
Yes.
Until it happens to them,
yeah.
or someone they know very closely, they won't take it on board.
So you said social media. Do you think that's one of the forces that is shaping people's responses to this?
Partly, I think we do all have a tendency to just constantly just look, because you think you want to hear something new, but then you just see the same old things being churned out, and it can be quite wearing, because I sort of thought that I've got a stack of books I want to read, and I've taken some time off, and I'm thinking, I just want to get away from that and just sit and read, and I can't do it. It's really difficult. I can't sit down and read and forget about the telephone and the Facebook and all the different social media things, because it's quick and it's addictive, I suppose, because you want to keep on top of things, but then I think I need to learn to limit my time as to how often I do that, or how long. A little bit throughout the day is becoming pointless now, because it's eating into my time where I could be using it much more in a positive way, really.
Okay, it's interesting that you say it's addictive, and I mean there is loads of stuff. There's a book called Digital Minimalism, which is a book that I'm looking at and learning through from this. And obviously, I love tech, and I love it because it's been a very big equalizer in terms of dyslexia, and it's allowed me to compete on a level playing field. But equally, on my personal phone, every single notification is on. Every single one. Because when I want to check LinkedIn, I'll check LinkedIn. When I want to check my emails, which I don't really, my 17,000 unread emails, I will go in and I will look at, okay, I emailed Neil yesterday. I need to see if he's got back to me. So I look at unread and I look for Neil. Or I want to check in on WhatsApp and see this. So
yeah, I've done that a while ago, because other people around me were getting agitated about my phone constantly beeping. It didn't bother me, but it was constant, oh, your phone's gone again, your phone's gone again. So in the end, I've turned off all the notifications apart from one or two where I don't want to miss their messages or anything. So yes, I do only look when I want to, but what I could learn now to do is to not look so often and just engross myself in something else, rather than just checking the latest coronavirus news around me,
And that, working and living through a pandemic in this sort of 24-hour news environment, at what point do you think it becomes a help, and at what point do you think it becomes a hindrance?
I think it's never a hindrance. I think as long as you can digest the information and not go theorizing and sort of go down a lane that then takes you on a sort of negative level, I think you know, it's I don't see that. What did you say? Not negative. What did you say?
Help and
A
hindrance.
hindrance or a help. I think it can only be a help, because even when I worked in my previous career, if you didn't keep up on top of the news, you'd be the only one who was way behind when you should have known when everyone else found
Sure,
out.
sure.
So that's my
But then the reason that I say that is also because you said about how you have a stack of books you want to read, but you can't because you're constantly drawn into either Facebook or social media or whatever.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I'm more thinking more broadly, not in terms of necessarily the impact, the information that has on you, but the impact of these devices themselves has on
I
your
think,
physical world in terms of
yes,
therefore your well-being.
yes. I think you've hit the nail on the head, in the sense that when I say it to you, I realize that it isn't just about COVID. It's the device that's handy and it's near you, and it's, you know, it's easy. I'm being lazy basically, because my brain needs to work that little bit harder to get myself engrossed in something that's
So
going to take a
it's
bit more
interesting.
energy.
You're not being lazy. There's business models that have been written about social media in terms of how do we make this the most addictive thing possible. And business plans say, because it's free and it's converting people's time to eyeballs,
Yeah.
it is full of dopamine hacks in terms of the
Yeah.
Facebook like bar, where you
Yeah.
press the like or the smiley face and you go across and it smiles and it animates. That is a continual reward, dopamine, serotonin pathway in the brain. That is an evolutionary, it's tapping into the basic evolutionary requirements that we have humans of wanting and needing social approval. So I know you're shaking your head, but it's amazing, isn't it? In terms of there's actual, Facebook have run experiments to see how they can make people feel sad as a result of the order of stuff that's done in their news feed. And obviously there's an incentive there, because then they can sell adverts to them for goods and services that make people feel better.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay, so that's really interesting that you say that. We're going to, hold on.
So you know what my New Year resolution is going to be then?
No, what?
Is to limit myself on the use of my phone.
I would. I mean, it's as addictive as crack cocaine. I mean, in the interview that I gave to the medical students, there's literally there's a slide that I put together that's saying the book Digital Minimalism, and then a load of cocaine and a razor blade. And the reason that these companies make so much is because every single minute that they can have your attention, they can therefore then monetize it. And
sorry to interrupt, but I think technology has its own advantages but disadvantages too, because now my phone's got all my music gadgets in there, my metronome in there, my tabla in there, my songs in there. So even if I don't want to look at Facebook, suddenly I have to use my phone for all those other things. Even a torch and a calculator I use my phone for. So then you can't, you get diverted, because you see that little number 1 on the Facebook thing and you're tempted to go in there thinking, oh, I'll just do this one.
But then it sucks you in, and then you can't, there's a continual cycle once you're in there. So I completely understand that. So we're going to move on to the second part, which is origins of COVID-19. What is your awareness on theories as to how COVID-19 came into existence?
How do you mean? What is my awareness?
Yeah, I mean, do you know where it came from?
Yes, yeah. So they're talking about the fact that in a Wuhan wet market, it was transferred from bats to humans or something. I don't know how true that is, but even in the webinar yesterday, they was making that as a theory of how it started.
The webinar on what? The 30th of December yesterday, you watched the webinar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what webinar was that?
That was the one that they had a GP and a urologist. Yeah. From a London hospital. And then they got all these communities together, and it was like a COVID-19 information, but also a pro-vaccination seminar. So I found it quite strange that a GP would just turn around and say, yes, that vaccine, yeah, Pfizer as well as the other one. We're very, very lucky to have the AstraZeneca one. And it had come out on the day, and they're going, yes, very safe, very safe. And I'm thinking, you're not qualified to say that it's very safe. And they were waving the bits of paper that were supposed to have ingredients in there in terms of what was in the vaccine. And I'm thinking, it's probably just as well that I can't tap in my questions, otherwise I'd end up just firing away loads of questions that they might not be too happy to answer.
Like what questions?
Basically questioning them when they're saying things like that, because I don't think it's right to turn around and say that, yeah, very safe, very safe. They need to give a more, different response, really.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting that you say that, and I'm just going to go down to a part in my dissertation that I'm writing, which is, I should remember it's not in this, but there's Eric Topol is a cardiologist who's written he put a tweet signposting a Wall Street Journal article. And that Wall Street Journal article is saying honesty is the best policy when selling vaccines. And actually, I do know where it is. It's on my phone, but I'm not going to waste the time. I'll send it to you, and you can look at it and tell me what you think about that. But it's interesting that you say that, because he in that article, he's basically talking about the doctor-patient relationship has always been one that it should be informed consent, where the medical professionals will update people on the best scientific knowledge that they have at their disposal, and then they will take the patient's sort of psychosocial being and situation to enable and then engage that patient to make the best decision that they can for their individual circumstances.
Exactly.
And they're saying that studies around that shared decision-making protocol have shown that uptake is way better when you do that, rather than just pushing in terms of you have to do it and you have to take it.
So, but this might be going off on a tangent, but this is what I mean, that I like to think of myself as someone who absolutely believes in informed consent, and I believe that I should empower other people to be able to have the information and then they make their own choices. I've done that all my life, but there are situations where I don't know whether that's because I'm getting older now or what it is, but often that presence of mind is lacking, and you have those few minutes to talk to your doctor. Even though I have such a good relationship with my GP, when she turned around and said to me, oh, if they offer it to you again, just take it, I was completely blank. I thought of 10 other questions I wanted to ask her afterwards, but it was too late by that time because, the phone call had finished. Because I would have wanted to know, why should I just take it? When are they going to start rolling it out? What are the pros and cons about both of the ones that are on offer now? But I think the sort of very short few minutes you have with people, unless it's written down on a list before you go and you planned it and prepared, it's really difficult to remember to ask, not because the medical profession aren't helpful, but it's just one of those things, isn't it? They're rushed off their feet, and, there are loads of people asking questions, and then some people are asking repeatedly the same sort of things, which the doctors are probably thinking, oh, please, just leave me alone.
No, it's a very interesting and it's a very valid point. So, okay. So your awareness is the theories, talked about bats, that's fine. What would you deem as a trusted source to get this kind of information specifically in terms of, say, origins of COVID-19 and the detailed scientific advice? Is there any sources that you would deem as trusted in that regard?
Well, the jury's out on that one, because sometimes I think the government and the politicians are being upfront, but most of the time I think that for one reason or other, whether that's to, balance the economy as well as people's lives and health, because of all the way it's been managed, where right from the beginning, a lot of people haven't had the trust in the political powers that be. Even their scientific advisors, you wonder whether they are also being quashed in a way, because they can only release bits of the information that's okay to do, if you see what I mean. It doesn't seem as transparent to me as it could be, and the decisions that are made are either made way too late by the time it's really, really quite bad, or they're made and then they're saying, yeah, it's okay, you can mix at Christmas for 5 days. And people rushing around Christmas shopping and rushing around wanting to meet their families. The virus, everyone knew, hadn't gone anywhere. So where was the sense in that? And then now,
well, when Dominic Rugg came out and said that they did enough stuff beforehand,
yes,
to allow 5 days at Christmas, and then would have to go back. You're shaking your head. Does that hold any weight with you?
Madness? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Unless he has a direct line to this virus, they wouldn't have known that, and they definitely were wrong in that, because you could see the eat out to help out thing got people rushing to various eateries and queuing and not distancing. I think partly the public could have taken ownership as well. I mean, I juggle lots of medical conditions, but I take it as my personal responsibility to make sure that I also play my part in that. It's no good moaning and saying and complaining that the medical profession don't do enough for you if you don't then play your part in that. So I think partly, yes, the trust is gone a long time ago, when they should have been setting an example, and they didn't, because it was okay for them to wander about and go out when at will, and then they're exposed, and it feels a bit childish, but all those things have played a part in certain people's situations, because they're thinking, well, if they can do it, I can do it. Whereas I've taken the view that 2 wrongs don't make a right, and that doesn't mean that I should just rush out and go shopping or go out and meet my family or whatever. So I've taken that personal decision.
It's the personal risk, though, isn't it? It's not the 2 wrongs make right. It's the personal risk to you as somebody who's shielding. So it all comes to that. Okay. So does detailed knowledge of the science behind COVID-19 help, hinder, or have no effect on your day-to-day response?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Does detailed knowledge of the science behind COVID-19 help, hinder, or have no effect on your day-to-day response?
Definitely helps.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
do you mean the scientific response that we get in the small doses from the government? Do you mean that, or generally?
No, I mean the science. I mean the following the science has been a phrase that has been very prominent in this, and I certainly have a different interpretation of what following the science means.
Yes.
And you, sounds like you do as well, in terms of the virus hasn't gone away, eat out to help out, queuing, shopping, Christmas, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So
sorry, that's what I meant. I am more interested, and what helps is the true science and the knowledge, and upskilling myself to learn about this. that's what interests me, and that's what helps, not the political maneuvering that goes on and then it's presented as a scientific reason. That's wrong. That doesn't help.
Okay. Has your understanding of this whole situation increased or decreased or stayed the same over the past 9 to 12 months?
Definitely increased as time has gone by. In the early days, now, only looking back at it now, that I think that I was extremely anxious in the early days because I was determined that I wanted to keep that out. And yes, I still have a wobbly every now and again, and I'm thinking any little thing I see as a danger to me and my family and people I want to protect. But I think I've sort of leveled off a bit in that, where you can see, that there's only so much you can do to really keep going. It has a counterproductive effect if you really get stressed out about it at the same time.
100%. And what do you think there's something that could have been done differently at the beginning in terms of educating the public when it comes to managing that psychological impact that people have been feeling?
It depends who was doing the educating, doesn't it? Because I'm thinking the battery's going actually, so
okay, sorry.
I don't know whether to plug it in a minute. But it depends. Like going back to what you were saying earlier about how the doctor informed consent and all that, it's got to come. That information's got to come to the individual from a trusted source for it to make an impact. People have got to see it, and it until it affects your close people.
Yeah,
sure. People don't normally understand.
We've talked about this just in the interest of time because of the battery. I'm going to say this has been widely described in media as a once in a century event, and in your view, could an outbreak such as this happen again in our own lifetime? So that's just a yes or no, really.
I don't know, but
okay, yeah, fine.
I don't see why it wouldn't happen.
Okay. Subsequent pandemic behaviours. 3 word slogans have been a big part of the UK government communications. Are there any that particularly resonate with you, and why?
At the risk of being a little bit sarky.
No, please don't. Just do it. It's fine.
I'm thinking that they've been very clever in the way they've chosen those, and people talk in short phrases and things, but how much attention have people paid to that? So they worked?
Don't worry, that's not quite the question, but are there any that particularly resonate with you?
Just the stay at home, and I wish people did.
Okay. The vastly varying way COVID-19 affects people has meant shielding and asymptomatic transmission has been vital. What do these terms mean to you? So just take shielding and asymptomatic transmission, just in the sentence.
Yeah, okay. So I'll start with asymptomatic transmission is when a person has the virus, but doesn't have any symptoms, doesn't know that he or she has got it, and they're actually spreading it. I don't know whether that's true, but that's how I understand that. Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, from a shielding perspective, you are shielding, so you get that. So we're going to move on.
Yeah.
3C is, are you more likely to listen to a friend, expert, celebrity when it comes to adopting behavioural modifications related to keeping you and your loved one safe? And I think you've answered that already in terms of a trusted source. When stories arose around people breaking the rules, do you think that helped, hindered, or had no effect on the public health response?
So I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about generally,
When stories broke in the media about people breaking the rules, do you think that helped, hindered, or had no effect on the public health response?
I think it hindered, because a lot of people then saw that as an excuse that was okay to do.
Okay, brilliant. So
Yeah.
we've got a quiz round now. Can you name
Okay.
who these people are? Who's that?
Yeah. Yeah. Van Tam.
And what's his job?
He is Deputy Chief Medical Officer.
Yeah, very good. Who's that? You might
Yeah.
not be able to see it very well.
Jenny Harries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Again, she's Deputy Chief Medical Officer too.
Okay, who's that?
Not sure. Can you give me the initials for that person?
DS.
Yes. Health person or a politician?
Health.
Any nursing person? No, I don't know.
On Channel 4 a lot. So Devi Sridhar.
Oh, that's a different photo of Devi Sridhar.
No, it's the one that's taken from when she broadcasts from a room.
That's not unfair.
Anyway.
That's unfair because I do know
Okay,
her.
Dora.
Yeah, he's from the World Health Organization.
Who is it?
I can't pronounce his name.
Okay. Tedros, Director General. Who's that?
Yeah. Oh, crikey. You're showing me really difficult photos of people I might have heard of and met.
She's Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove. She's also at the
No.
World Health Organization. Who's that?
No, I hadn't heard of her.
Who's that?
I have seen that lady. No. She's been on some.
Yeah, she's June Rain. She's the vaccine MHRA woman. Who's
Okay.
Who's that?
That's a really blurred photo. I can just see a white blob like a snowman.
I don't know why it's not focusing.
Can't see. You'll have to WhatsApp it to me, and then
So it's somebody that's
it really is a bad photo.
Sitting in a rose garden with a table, giving a press conference.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, crikey! I've tried to blot his name out of my head. Heard too much about him. Dominic Cummings.
Okay, so I've pixelated the messaging on that. Can you remember what that messaging was? So it's the yellow and red. Yellow and red. Can you remember what those slogans were?
Stay at home, save lives. No, something to do with NHS in the middle. So stay at home, protect the NHS and save lives.
Very good. What is this one?
Was that correct?
That was correct, yeah. What's this one? So this is the yellow and green one. I need to get this so that we can screen share it rather than doing it this way.
Yes, I think screen share would be much better.
That one, the yellow and green?
Yellow and green? No, don't know.
Yeah, it's the current one, the yellow and green one that's out and about. Rather than staying at home, you're staying...
Yeah. Not protecting the NHS anymore. I mean, they're not. Forgotten.
Staying alert.
Oh, yes.
Middle one.
Stay alert.
Controlling something that's like a billionth of a
Control
meter
the virus.
Small. Yeah.
Control the virus. Stay alert, control the virus. Something about keeping your distance or something? No.
Saving lives.
Oh, okay. Well, that didn't work that well then, did it?
No, but that's good. That's very useful. Thank you very much. The final one, because we've got time for, is: are there any words or phrases?
The quiz.
Are there any words or phrases that spring to mind about 2020 and the COVID-19 pandemic as a whole?
Can I give it to you in a sentence?
Yeah.
Yes, I feel immensely grateful on a personal level in many, many ways, but that's nothing new for 2020. But, you know, a lot of people are sending messages saying we've learned lessons, and I'm thinking, I wonder where they've heard that from. And lessons have been learned. But how many people going forward, as soon as the pandemic finishes, will remember that they should be considering other people, not rushing around like headless chickens for material gain,
Yeah.
you know,
So
and actually thinking about other people.
history doesn't really help us in that regard in terms of the 1918 flu pandemic.
Yeah.
Which wasn't Spanish flu. I mean, it was misnamed. It's almost like calling this the UK strain or the UK flu.
Right.
The second wave was worse, killed way more people.
Yeah.
They went through the same kind of problems in terms of people thinking that it's a conspiracy and a hoax and all this sort of stuff. And then as soon as after 1918, 1919, that kind of ended, you had a period, yes, the roaring 20s, but people didn't really listen. They forgot about it. They buried their head in the sand. They didn't move forward thinking about it. And even if you bring it more forward to current day, you've got 2000. And since 2000, we've had SARS, MERS, swine flu, Ebola, avian flu, loads of other ones. So history doesn't favor us in that regard, but
No,
you know,
not
who
true.
knows?
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. I'm going to stop recording now. Thank you
But
very much.
there's lots of good stuff going on though, and it always will go on though, won't it? Because there are always different people. That's the whole nature of the thing, isn't it? There are some who will be more aware and more wanting to do things for the good
100%.
of the whole planet, really.
So I'm going to stop this now. Thank you very much. Hold on. I'm going to stop recording.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.